District Attorney Fani, Fani. Last name is Willis.
Ms. Willis, how did you know to come into the courtroom right then?
There were people I was pacing in my office,
Okay.
and I heard someone yell, "His testimony is done." It only made sense to me that I would be the next witness, and I've been very anxious to have this conversation with you today. So I ran to the courtroom.
So as soon as you heard that Mr. Wade was done testifying, that's when you just assumed you would be the next witness?
It only makes sense.
Did you listen to any of the testimony?
I've been in my office pacing, ma'am.
Did you listen to any of the arguments?
I did hear the arguments this morning. It's ridiculous to me that you lied on Monday, and yet here we still are. And I did listen to that argument.
Fani Willis was not necessarily in the best of mood in this case. After all things being equal, she had to sit there and talk to people of Georgia, and by extension, the rest of the world, about her sexual relationship with Wade. Now, Wade was the district attorney that was running this trial, basically the attorney that she had to the special prosecutor for this particular case. And it was outed and revealed, I believe Wade was having a divorce, and it came out in a divorce that Wade had a sexual relationship with Fani Willis. The defense in this case said, well, wait a minute, that's a conflict of interest. If you were having sex with the guy, when did this relationship begin? And if you were having sex with him before it began, then that's a conflict of interest, and we don't think you should be on this trial, meaning we believe that this should be kicked out of Fulton, or at the very least, Fani Willis shouldn't be in charge of the case. Now, when this went to Scott McAfee, he had a hearing on this, which is what you were watching, where they went through all of these people testimony. I mean, the entire trial was at that point derailed, and it became focused on when did you have sex with Wade, and did this sexual relationship have anything to do with the charges, or did it in any way disadvantage the defense in the case? The entire case eventually became about that. In fact, when people were talking about the case, that was the part that became far more interesting than the actual case itself, because it was extremely salacious. I mean, for God's sake, for weeks they were talking about her having sex with Wade and whether or not there was some kind of financial relationship or some kind of financial kickback that she was getting through all of this. Now, after everything was said and done, McAfee said, look, I think that you guys are being dishonest, but I can't prove when this relationship started. So in the interest of getting rid of any kind of appearance of impropriety, one of you have to leave. Either Fani Willis has to leave or Wade has to leave, in which case Wade stepped down. This went to the appeals court, and the appeals court has just disqualified Fani Willis from this case, effectively saying you can no longer function on this case. This is astonishing. This is the story that recently came out. I mean, there are multiple outlets that have read this through, but just for the headline, Fani disqualified from Trump's Georgia election interference case. Donald Trump is stacking up wins left and right. So just to be clear, I want to go through part of this article from CBS News. The appeals court, just to summarize, pointed out that they believe that the judge made a mistake in not disqualifying Willis from this case, that it wasn't enough to get rid of Wade, that from the standpoint of impropriety or the appearance of impropriety, that he should have gotten rid of both. And so the appeals court has gone through and said Fani Willis is off. Quote, after careful consideration of the trial court's finding in this order, we conclude that it erred in failing to disqualify District Attorney Fani Willis and her office. The court majority has found the remedy crafted by the trial court to prevent the ongoing appearance of impropriety did nothing to address the appearance of impropriety that existed at the time when D.A. Willis was exercising a broad pretrial discretion about who to prosecute and what charges to bring. This is this right here. quote, disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. Now, even though they got rid of Fani Willis, they did not get rid of the case. So even though this case has been thrown into a fair amount of disarray, the case is still on-ish. I mean, at this point, it's going to get kicked to this prosecutorial body that has to make a decision on where to send the trial, basically to get a new prosecutor for the case. But in either case, Fani Willis will not be that person anymore doing this trial. The DA has been fired. The district attorney has been fired. This is astonishing. This is astonishing. In the very beginning of this, if you remember, the thought was that this was going to be the strongest case against Trump. That of all the cases, for one, this is taking place in the state. B, he did call Raffensperger and ask for the votes. They had him on tape asking Raffensperger for the votes. And so the thought was that you have Trump dead to rights. When Fani Willis started this, if you remember, she ended up with 19 different defendants that she was charging at the exact same time. So all of these people had their own lawyers, and all of these lawyers got to ask questions in anything that effectively came up. When it came up, or when it was found out that she was having a sexual relationship with Wade, all hell broke loose. And so the best looking case, where it looked like, whoa, she's really kicking ass. She's getting it. She was getting people to confess, to plead down and testify against the other people in the case. And obviously the objective was to whittle all of these people down and get each one to testify against Trump or against whoever else in the trial that didn't necessarily agree to go along with it. The idea was pressure. It was supposed to be a pressure campaign where you're whittling your people down to maybe at the very end, maybe have 5 people to prosecute, but at the very least, you had another 14 that were going to testify against those 5. Didn't work that way. Didn't work that way. Didn't work that way at all. In fact, I read this part. In March, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McCaffrey declined to disqualify Wade from the case over the romantic relationship she had with Nathan Wade, whom she hired as a special prosecutor in November 2021 to assist in the investigation into Trump and his allies. Now, I got to be honest, I don't quite get how this is a conflict of interest, regardless of when she hired Wade. She wanted to convict Trump. She hired somebody who wanted to convict Trump with her. They're on the same page, whether they were having sex before or after. I'm not quite sure how it matters. I still don't get how it matters. And this notion that it was a financial kickback, to me, that was nonsense. I didn't buy that one iota. At the same token, it doesn't really matter what I think. What matters at this point is what the appeals court thinks. And what the appeals court thinks is there was an appearance of impropriety. And the only way to deal with that appearance of impropriety is to get rid of Fani Willis. So from here on out, the case against Donald Trump in regards to election interference is still on in Georgia. Nathan Wade, of course, the special prosecutor, had already been kicked. And now the appeals court has also kicked Fani Willis. Fani Willis has been fired. Down goes Fani. Down goes Fani. That is a super ironic name, Fani Willis. I'm going to say like. I'm going to say share. I'm going to say subscribe. More good news for Trump. More humiliation for Fani Willis. I mean, keep in mind, she had one job. Sleeping with the special prosecutor was not part of that job. And for all intents and purposes, the case that started off strongest against Trump ended up being comically humiliating, with her sitting on the stand, having to talk about her sexual activity with Wade, even talking about him having prostate cancer that was adversely affecting his ability to have sex. Just astonishing stuff. for a prosecutor to have to talk about and expose, all because you couldn't keep your fanny to yourself. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. Have a good one, all.